Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Saturday, March 16th. We're going to take a look at Palantir today. So Palantir's recent really impressive climb and hold, right? It's just climb after climb after climb, is pulling back at the moment. We'll see how far it goes. I'm not going to get sort of, overly pessimistic on it, regardless of what the market cap is or, anything like that. But just based on the chart alone, there's a few things to think about. One, we do have an unfilled gap all the way down here, which would be quite far. We do have another gap here that hasn't even started to be filled at all. That would be a pretty solid drawdown. We get it certainly well under 20. So, we'll see if those come into play or not. But if you look at, some of the recent pushes, you had this long consolidation period after this really steep downturn, and then a really, really strong climb up, little pullback, and then a much larger pullback up, and then it came back basically to the level where it had pulled back previously. Sort of triple bottom there or so, depending on exactly how you want to count these candles. I count them more as swings than individual candles, but and then a nice push up and then a pullback, not quite down to that same level, and then a really strong uptick again, and then retracement. That's that near gap fill here, consolidation, and then a huge jump up. Again, pull back, and now we're getting into sort of some interesting territory. Big run up here, 27.50, and then pull back. Now the low on this day was 23.43, and then we get 23.42, so slightly lower on Friday than it put in on this candle. So my question is, are we going to see potential for a double bottom here, or is it going to come back similar to how it did and the one where I was saying it's sort of put in triples, and come down more near to this swing low here, this one that came in below 23.10, but sort of just hovered there in midair, if you will. But the low on that day was 22.29. If so, percentage-wise, yeah, that's another downturn, but it's not that far. It certainly keeps it in the 20s. So I'm pretty keen to see what it does in this sort of moment that it's having, right now. Does it get any boost off of near double bottom from this candle? We have this 23.10 on the chart. It was doing a good job sort of recovering to that level previously. You see right here. So will that come into play? And if not, do we get anything off of this 22.29-ish area? Right? In an ideal world, to my mind, I wouldn't want it to quite come down to that 22.29, but maybe get close, maybe 22.40, something like that, right? Maybe a little slip below the 22.50 level. So like I say, 22.40, 22.35, something like that. And then maybe that's where it could get a push from. I don't know, but we'll have to see. But there's sort of, three options there. The level where it's currently at, the 23.10, or this sort of lone wolf candle here. Now if it slips below that, lower, 21.21, we still have on the chart 20, 01, 19, 19, 18, and so on and so forth, as you see down here. Now to the upside of it does sort of get some momentum back and starts climbing again, 24.17, 25.10, 26.79, 28, and 29.19. So obviously these would put it above recent swing highs. So again, we'll see. Catalysts play a big factor with Palantir. Obviously there's a lot of interest from retail, and there's been sort of a lot of watching of, is this going to gain entrance into the S&P 500 on the next go round, and all this stuff that's sort of circulating around Palantir. But it has always been a strong catalyst, on contracts signed, and certainly in earnings and stuff like that, analyst changes. So we'll see how those come into play for this as well. Not to be lost, it can spend a decent amount of time moving relatively sideways, and I say relatively because this is a huge percentage area, right? If you played the bottom to the top on this repeatedly, you would have huge gains and losses consistently. But again, if you sort of zoom out, that is a relatively sideways consolidation area. So could it just spend a decent amount of time somewhere up here consolidating? That may not be the worst thing in the world for it. It would certainly be better than when it was consolidating down here in the single digits, and also here in about 15-ish range. Not to say it couldn't consolidate and then hit a downturn, but that is always certainly in the cards for Palantir, and it's shown us that in the past. Now, on the think or swim side of things, pretty recent trigger and fire, looking like it might be taking sort of the wind out of the sails a little bit on this trigger and fire. We see this trigger and fire led to that big jump up. I mean, earnings really led to the jump up, but it was in conjunction with the TTM squeeze indicator throwing a signal there. Came in, got into the channel, left it again, and that's when it started to trigger, and firing has so far at least brought it back into the channel, and again, at least for the moment, has lost the support of the mid-range of the channel. Does that mean it can't just sort of either pin itself to the mid-range and kind of just hug it for a while? That's what the consolidation may look like. Or regain support and push again? No, of course, it could certainly do those things, but for the time being, that's the situation. Also, nice symmetrical, consistent drawdown of the bullish momentum on the TTM squeeze indicator. Now the question will become, does that sort of lengthy drawdown, is that enough of a breath, enough of a break, and it's ready to sort of climb again? Or, like I had said earlier, will that kind of take the wind out of the sails and sort of just lead to a further loss of momentum and maybe give some power back to the bears? We'll have to wait and see. Now, some other levels that may come into play, at least for the moment, and just keep in mind this channel is dynamic, so it does shift as new price action is put in. But for the time being, this low mid-range of the channel is at 2280, lower range of the channel, lower bound of the channel, I should say, 2168, mid-range 2409, upper mid bound of the channel 2530, upper bound of the channel 2651. So we'll see what it wants to do there, but for the time being, it looks like it's at least sort of trying to play out this trigger and fire, which is pushing it to the downside. Has already had a decent percentage draw down, so we'll see how much more juice is left to squeeze in that move. All right, folks, I hope that you're enjoying your weekend, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.